بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد النبي العالمين الذي اسمه مكتوب في الإنجيل والتوراة أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة ونجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون صدق الله العظيم. My dear brothers, sisters, viewers and listeners, every place in this world in which we want to seek progress in has its own currency. And if we possess that currency, we're able to progress within that system. If we're going into an academic realm or an academic arena, the currency is our diplomas. The currency is our degrees. The currency is the letters that are attached to our name and the abbreviations that people have given us. If we go into a room in which people are entrepreneurs and they're deciding on which ventures to go into and which decisions to make for their businesses, the currency that is required is wealth. The currency that is required is experience. If we simply want to walk into a marketplace and buy something, the currency that allows us to make progress is money. Without that currency, we remain stranded. We actually start regressing. We're pushed away. We're deprived. We're limited. My dear friends, the currency that is required for us to seek any level of progress in the arena of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the realm of Allah's network, in the network of Allah. If we seek to find progress in the network of Allah, as people are always trying to find progress and get an edge in the network of the people of this world, well, that edge comes because we have the currency there. If we don't have the currency, we're not even able to get a seat on that table. We're not even able to walk into that room because the currency that is required, we don't possess it. The currency that allows us to be known in the network of Allah, which is the ultimate goal of that we possess. The ultimate goal of every single human being and a believer is to have to be affiliated and to be known within the gatherings of the angels, within the chambers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which currency is required? Because logic says that every arena has a currency. Rationale says that every system has a buy-in. What is the buy-in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is requiring for us to have? And in this beautiful surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us that إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا مَا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ زِينَةً لَهَا, that we've made everything in this world as a test. It's beautiful. Everything is beautiful. However, the currency that I require is لِنَبْلُوَهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ أَحْسَنُ وَعَمَلًا, that we want to know and we want to find out who has the best deeds. The currency that allows us to progress, to have a presence in the gatherings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are good deeds. The currency that allows our voice to be heard in the chambers of Allah are good deeds. The currency that allows for our dua to be accepted is to have deeds with us. The ultimate goal of this beautiful month of Ramadan and that which comes before it in the month of Sha'ban that many ignore. But the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the month that is ignored more than anything else is the month of Sha'ban. It's as if it's a sha'ab, it's a valley. So people don't recognize the valley, they only look at the mountain. And the mountain is the month of Ramadan. But the ultimate source of strength and a running start that we can get is through the month of Sha'ban. But what is this for? It's to gain a currency. And that currency is to have good deeds. And the goal is not to have many. The goal is not the number. Ahsanu amala. The goal is to produce something that we can give to Allah, which is void of any form of ostentation, which has no other intention except the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this became the goal of all the companions. Is that how do we produce good deeds through which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased? Every single deed has an effect. It's not the number. It's the act itself. It's not about how many times I did it. It's the fact that I did it once, but I did it correctly. So the Prophet Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu says in a beautiful narration in reference to just a good deed. Not the most, because what's weighed on the Day of Judgment is the weight of the deeds. And the weight of the deeds is dependent upon the quality of the deed. If the quality of the deed is lacking, then regardless of how much we have, it's very difficult to compensate. It's very difficult to substitute and add on. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu says, إِنَّ لِلْحَسَنَةِ ضِيَاءً فِي الْوَجْهِ. For every good deed, we have 5 beautiful effects. What we eat, we believe that what we eat and what we consume affects us. We're from a family, my parents are physicians. Even as children, they would say, don't eat this, don't eat that, because it will give you this effect. It will affect you in that way. It will limit this and it will bother you in that way. So even everyone knows what we consume affects our body. There's short-term effects and there's definitely long-term effects. Short-term and long-term. What we drink affects us. The needles that we take affect us. If we believe all of this, there is a reality of what we do with our a'mal also has an effect on our life. The same way we believe that if I am to work hard and go to work from 9 to 5, it has an effect on our life. The currency that we are taught to think with and the lens that we are taught to see with is that if I pray my fajr, it will also have a positive effect on my day. It will also bring barakah in my day. This is why the Prophet ﷺ one day, he looked at one of his young companions by the name of Zayd ibn Haritha, and he said to him, كيف أصبحت يا حارثة? How did you wake up today, O Haritha? He was identifying his mentality, the lens that he saw the world with. كيف أصبحت يا حارثة? What are you looking to earn from today? What is your goal today? And he responded by saying, أصبحت بالله مؤمنا حقا. That I woke up with a mountain of faith in my heart. I woke up with so much belief, so much conviction. It was a powerful statement. It's a bold statement to make in front of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet of Allah asked him, وَمَا إِنَّ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ حَقِيقَةً فَمَا حَقِيقَةُ قَوْلِكَ. Every statement has proof. What is the proof of your statement? What proof do you have to back up what you just said? What is your proof? And he responds by saying, أَضْمَأْتُ نَهَارِي وَأَسْهَرْتُ لَيْلِي. I have proof, Ya Rasulullah. My proof is that I fast in the day and I pray tahajjud at night. I give a portion of my night to Allah and I give a portion of my day to Allah. Meaning I have a'mal. A'mal is what produces an effect. A'mal, deeds. There is no success story that is based on emotions and anecdotes. You can be the best storyteller in the world and you can mix and match the story the way you wish and the way I wish. But success is based on metrics. Success is based on measurables. Success is based on our KPIs being reached. Similarly, the emotions, as important as they are, the deed is the essence. This is why when the Prophet ﷺ was asked, what is a sign of faith? What is a sign of faith? He could have simply given a response that was in a veneer of theology or jurisprudence. He could have given a response that was filled with technicalities, because that's what we get caught up with. We get caught in the technicalities. He could have given a response that was based on other aspects, but his response was very simple. إِذَا سَرَّتْكَ حَسَنَتُكَ. When the good that you do makes you feel good. In order to be in the realm of a believer, we have to do good. The metric of our iman are the good deeds that we have in our life, which produce a positive effect on us and our families, that we feel good about ourselves. It has a positive effect on everyone around us. It creates a sense of ease and sakina because we produced good deeds. So he says to the Prophet of Allah, I've done good. And my deeds, though they may not be many, because the goal is not to have a lot, the goal is to have enough that are done with the right level of quality, ihsan, ikhlas, that it is enough for us to earn Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure. One day the Prophet of Allah, after Fajr Salah, he looked at his companions and he says to them, has anyone amongst you given charity? This was their gatherings. This was how their gatherings were. Their gatherings were based upon this metric, this currency. Has anyone amongst you given charity today? Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu raises his hand. Has anyone amongst you started to fast? He again raises his hand. Has anyone amongst you visited a sick person? He raises his hand again. Has anyone amongst you attended to a janazah? He again raises his hand. How he was able to do this at the start of his day is still a miracle. But the fact remains that it was all the merit of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was based upon his deeds. It wasn't about Who is the greatest because of our strength? إن الله لا ينظر إلى صوركم ولا إلى أجسامكم ولا ينظر ولكن ينظر إلى قلوبكم وأعمالكم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks upon our deeds and what we have prepared to give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that can only happen if we understand that these good deeds have a positive effect on us and our families. So Abdullah ibn Abbas, as I was mentioning earlier, he said, Inna lil hasanati. This is just to tell us that deeds have an effect. Deeds are a currency that we are required to have. He says, Inna lil hasanati dhiya'an fil wajh. If food that is always sugary has an effect on our body, deeds also have an effect. So he says that verily for every deed, na hasanat, for good deeds, for every single good deed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala endows this person with dhiya'an fil wajh, with light upon their face. Not light that is fabricated and fake. Dhiya'an fil wajh refers to a sense of peace, that people want to be around this person, as was the presence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when he would enter into a place, people would be attracted to him, not simply because of how he looked, but because of how he made them feel. There are many beautiful people in this world, many beautiful things in this world. We're not attracted to everyone. We're attracted to people based upon how they make us feel and how they empower us, how they raise us, how they enable us. Dhiya'an fil wajh. When Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu says, لما دخل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم المدينة أضاء منها كل شيء. When the Prophet of Allah entered into Medina al-Munawwara, he lit up the entire city. He lit up the entire community simply by his presence. That same city, the name of which was Yathrib, which refers to sickness, now the name changed to Al-Madinah al-Tayyiba, Al-Madinah al-Munawwara, the purified city, the illuminated city. The light had nothing to do with the physical light. It had to do with the presence of our Habib sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Then he says, وَنُورًا فِي الْقَلْبِ, that Allah put a light in our heart. And this nur is real. It's not like this mystical thing that it's just light in the heart. We struggle to do the most tedious, mundane things in our home when there's no light. If someone walks into their house and the light is off, even though they know where the furniture of their house is, they will one out of every second time they will stub their toe on the sofa. They will hit their elbow on the pillar, because even though it's so simple, just walk straight, don't hit anything. But since it's dark and the room has no light, and there is an absence of light in the presence of darkness, a person can't see, hence they can't do the simplest things. My dear friends, what do we think about the darkness of the heart? That how are we able to survive this tsunami of what we call life, which has shifts and turns, challenges and difficulties, joys and moments of happiness? How are we able to remain steadfast? How are we able to stay committed if we don't have that light? نورا في القلب يخرجونهم من الظلمات إلى النور. Allah removes them from darkness and brings them into light. This light is not something which is emotional. It's something which is directly an extension of me doing a good deed. The moment we do good deeds, Allah places this light in our heart, through which we're able to make the right decisions, through which we're able to identify good from bad, evil from goodness, right from wrong. When the person doesn't have that light, we can try to convince them rationally as much as we want. But the light is what gives the person the strength to make the correct decision. How do we achieve that? Hasana, one good deed. And then he says, وَقُوَّةً فِي الْبَدَنِ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a person strength. How many times as youngsters do we say, I'm just too tired. I don't feel like I can do it. I don't feel like I just can't do it. That is not a lack of physical strength. That's a lack of spiritual strength, perhaps, which we all possess in some way or to some degree. How do we fight that? How do we go against that tide? Hasana, by doing good deeds. It gives us more strength. It gives us an ability of believing that we can do more. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah says, قوة في البدن, strength in the body, refers to tawfiq للعمل الصالح, that Allah gives us more tawfiq. Scholars have always debated, how do we know that a deed was accepted? And they say the greatest sign of a deed being accepted in this world is that a person has been given the tawfiq of doing it again and again. So we prayed Jum'ah this week, Allah gives us tawfiq to pray Jum'ah next week. We fasted today, Allah gives us the ability to fast again. This is called tawfiq. And a sign of being able to do something again and again is a very clear indication that the previous deed was accepted. It is a clear indication that the previous deed was accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah gives us strength. And then He says, وَبَرَكَةً فِي الرِّزْقِ, that Allah places barakah in our life. And barakah doesn't refer to simply food and wealth. Barakah in our children. Barakah in our home. That our home feels like it's enough for us. How many of us feel confined even in our own home? Confined even in our own families? Confined in our jobs? A sign that Allah, an effect of good deeds is Allah gives us a sense of expansion in all of these things. وَلْيَسَعْكَ بَيْتُكَ, that our home feels like it's enough for us. Our wealth feels like it's enough for us. Barakah does not mean ziyada. We live in capitalism at the highest level. So we're always looking for more and more and more. Barakah means that the same amount of wealth that I had for 2 children has expanded, it's expanded in its capacity, not in its amount. The capacity increases. He was the same person, but he was able to do much more. How? Because he has barakah in his time. His capacity increased, not his time. His wealth didn't increase. The capacity and the potential impact of his wealth increased, because now Allah placed barakah within it. وَبَارِكْ لِي فِي مَا أَعْطَيْتَ. But the Prophet taught his grandchildren the dua, Hassan and Hussein, "Oh Allah, give me barakah in that which you have already given me." Meaning, it doesn't mean that we want more. Rather, it refers to whatever we have is sufficient for us. And the 5th effect is the greatest one. وَمَحَبَّةً فِي قُلُوبِ النَّاسِ. Oh Allah, Allah puts our love in the gatherings that we populate. Allah puts our love in the hearts of people around us. People start to love us not because of what we've done for them alone, independently, but rather what we've done for them to please Allah. Our parents, our children will love us because we serve them to please Allah. وَمُحَبَّةً فِي قُلُوبِ النَّاسِ. Parents are trying to earn the love of their children. Children are aiming to earn the love of their friends. And we're all trying to make someone like us, someone welcome us. That effect that we so dearly and earnestly desire is earned by earning Allah's love. مَحَبَّةً فِي قُلُوبِ النَّاسِ. Simply by doing a good deed. إِنَّ اللَّهَ إِذَا أَحَبَّ عَبْدًا نَادَى جِبْرِيلٌ. When Allah loves someone, He calls Jibreel. And He says, "Ya Jibreel, إِنِّي أُحِبُّ فُلَانِ ibn فُلَانِ فَأَحِبُّهُ." Oh Jibreel, I love so and so person, so you also should love him. When Allah loves us, He tells Jibreel, you love this person too. And then Jibreel begins to love this person. And he comes to the heavens and to the billions of angels that are there, and he says to them that Allah has established His love for this person. All of you must love this person. Now all the angels start to love this person. حَتَّى يَأْتِ الْقُبُولَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. My dear parents, children, friends, and spouses that are watching today, we want to earn each other's love without earning the love of the true boss. Right? It's okay. So what if a desk employee loves me? If my CEO doesn't love me, he can still fire me. Right? That person can't help me at that point. What we really are earning, what we really wish to earn, is everyone's love, which is simply earned by earning His love. Once we have His hubb, once we have His love, then everyone else becomes a part of it. The children start to be respectful. The spouses see eye to eye. حَتَّى يَأْتِ الْقُبُولَ فِي الْأَرْضِ is an effect of earning Allah's love in our life, which comes from doing good deeds. So this entire verse that we spoke about, I began speaking about currency. Currency in the eyes of Allah is through good deeds. And those good deeds don't only benefit us in the akhirah, they also bring benefit to us in this world while we are living here. Because that is currency. How we say, I have rapport with this person. I have currency with them. I have something that I can use. What we can use to produce results in this world are a'mal. Therefore, the Prophet ﷺ came to this world and he continuously spoke about the importance of good deeds. And he highlighted the significance of what a deed does for us in this world and in the next world. إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. Allah has already informed us that I will give you every aspect of the bliss of the hereafter, of akhirah, of Jannah. But I need your time, I need your wealth, I need your deeds. Once a person commits to this, the portals of Allah's love and the gateways of Allah's support are showered upon us. That the divine intervention that begins will never be limited. Well, the Prophet of Allah is sitting in Badr, or rather standing, making dua. Allahumma inna ma wa'adtani, Allahumma anjiz ma wa'adtani. Allah, where is your promise? Allah, fulfill your promise. With 313, he's fighting against 1,000, and Allah gives him a clear victory through divine intervention of angels, because the deed was a dua. This is why the most accepted du'as are done at the back of doing good deeds, like after praying salat, like after praying tahajjud, like after giving charity. Why do we give charity then make dua? Because that deed creates a level of capacity in that dua. That good deed creates a level of impact in our dua. One day, and I'll end with a story, that there was a companion whose real name isn't even known, because he wasn't per se to be a known companion. Not that it makes any difference, because they were known in the books of Allah. But his nickname was Abu Mu'laq, and the companions referred to him as kana tajiran. He was a merchant. He wasn't a scholar. He wasn't this or that. He was a merchant, which was great. He was traveling with his caravan, and a man came to him and began looting him and robbing him. So this companion looks at him and he says to him, "Aturidu dami am mali?" Do you wish aturidu an tahriqa dami am mali? Do you wish to spill my blood, meaning kill me, or do you simply want my money? And the man says, "No, if I kill you, I'll take your money anyway. So I'm going to kill you. That's already decided." So he says to this man, "Please allow me to pray 4 rak'ah. Allow me to pray, and then I'm done. After that, you can take my life." He goes forth and he begins his 4 rak'ah, and his final sajda, he makes this beautiful dua. Ya Wadud, because they believed in the power of amal. They believed in the power, in the impact of salat. They understood the power of these 2 rak'at. They understood the power of raising their hands in front of Allah. They understood the power of their tears in front of Allah. They understood the power of their sajda. As important as it is for our voices to be heard in the streets, it's more important for our voices to be heard in the chambers of Allah. That when we speak, the angels hear our voices. When we ask, the angels rush to Allah saying, "Oh Allah, this man, this abd or this amma, this sister is asking for your support." The Sahabas were more concerned for their voices to be synonymous in the heavens than for their voices to be synonymous in this world. This man turns to Allah, understanding the power of an amal, and he says, "Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Dal Arsh al-Majid, Ya Fa'ala lima yurid." Oh, the one who loves us more than our own mothers. Oh, the one who does whatever he wishes and no one can ask him why or how. Ya Dal Arsh al-Majid. Oh, the one who is the owner and the possessor of the throne that covers the heavens and the earth. وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ أَن تَكْفِيَنِي مِنْ شَرِّ هَذَا اللِّص. Oh Allah, I ask you to protect me from the evil intention of this robber, this looter. Support me. And then he says, "Ya Mughith aghithni, Ya Mughith aghithni, Ya Mughith aghithni." Or helper, help me. Or helper, help me. Or helper, help me. And after the 3rd time, there is a man this is a story in Tabrani, and narrations are accepted. He's rushing on a horse and he kills this man who was attempting to rob this Sahaba. And the Sahaba looks upon him and says, "Who are you and where did you come from?" He says, "Ana malikum min as-sama'i ar-rabi'. I'm an angel that descended from the 4th heaven." So how did you come? He said, "The first time you made your dua, Ya Mughith, O helper, there was a knocking sound in the heavens. And the 2nd time you made your dua, there was a rattling sound. And the 3rd time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, is there anyone that is ready to help my abd because he is in need?" And I volunteered. Imagine being such an individual the angels are volunteering to be in our gatherings. Angels are volunteering to be in our presence. Angels don't volunteer to be in our presence because of how we look. Angels volunteer to be in our presence because of what we are doing. Our a'mal, whenever we do good deeds, it attracts angels. It brings them into our home. It brings them into our gatherings. So the month of Ramadan and the month of Sha'ban is, of course, a month of emotions that is that is that is created and that is cultivated through acts of goodness, through a'mal. It's not the number, but it definitely is the act itself that produces goodness, that produces impact. Anyone that is struggling with anything, our amal is salat. The Prophet ﷺ, whenever he was struggling, he would pray 2 raka'ah. Yes, we seek help from the world, knowing they can't really help us. But we seek help from Allah, knowing that He truly is the only source of support. So this idea of ahsan wa amala is not to say that quantity doesn't matter. It's simply to say that don't be overwhelmed by the quantity and focus on the fact that we have to start somewhere. If we always aim to hit a home run, we'll strike out quite often. But what Allah is asking for us to do is get a base hit. Start somewhere. Start anywhere, but continue moving forward. If we're not progressing, we are indeed regressing. In progress is synonymous to success, and the only way to gauge progress is by the metric of a currency. And the metric of the currency of Allah are good deeds, and this allows us to move forward. May Allah make us amongst those that have filled the month of Sha'ban with good deeds, and we diversify our portfolio as we do for our stocks and our investments. Our portfolio is diversified with salat, durood, dhikr, sadaqah, visiting people who are sick, visiting people whose families have lost loved ones, making dua for people who are struggling. We diversify our portfolio, and by doing so, we won't become tired, lazy, or overwhelmed, because we've diversified our portfolio of good deeds. May Allah make us amongst those people. Jazakallahu khair. Wa akhu da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Jazakumullah khairan, Mufti. Those were such beautiful allegories that you just spaced out and made it very realistic and making sure that you're using real life examples. Jazakumullah khairan. I also love the baseball reference, so thank you. Thank you. I'm not a baseball fan, but just saying, it was really good. Mashallah.
Try.
We have a couple of questions. Are you ready to dive right into these questions from the audience? Okay. The first one, Bismillah, is from our sister Nabila. Can you clarify whether making an intention towards something is enough as Muslims who are intending for the akhirah? Isn't intention something that's coming from Allah the same way the effort is?
So it's a great question. So the first is, I think it's a two-part question. The first part is, can we clarify if intention is the same thing as making? If is enough as Muslims who are intending the akhirah? No. Look, just like how we intend, for example, someone intends to become a physician. They need to renew their intention almost every day because of how difficult that journey is. They need to remind themselves that I'm going through this because one day it'll be worth it. Similarly, as a believer, we continue reminding ourselves about the intention simply because it's hard. And when we remind ourselves that there's a greater goal in life, there's a much larger objective that we are pursuing, then that intention simply empowers us more. The idea of intention isn't simply to rectify what we want to do. It's to enable us as well. Everyone talks about intention as if it's just to clear what we want to do. No, it's also to enable us to do what we thought we could never do. Because once we make that intention that I'm doing it for Allah, the challenges that come in that process, though they may be definitely challenging, they don't overwhelm us. They don't become overbearing upon us. They don't throw us into a realm of anxiety and hardship, because the intention continues to remind us why it's worth it. So the idea of intention, yes, of course, if I'm fasting in the month of Ramadan, do I need to make intention every single day? Not really, right? According to the fiqh of it, because we're already fasting. But the idea is to remind us why we're doing it and to enable us to be much more able in that process. That's number one. The second thing is, does the intention also come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Look, 100%, even our effort, though there is a reliance upon Allah, we make the effort. And our intention is made through us. Tawfiq is given by Allah, and that goes into a discussion of qadr and free will, which is a much lengthier conversation. But to kind of simplify it, our intention is based upon our surroundings. That's why most people who are surrounded by engineers become engineers. Most people that live in a certain country play that sport because everyone around them plays that sport. Most people who are surrounded by so and so become that as well. It's not to say that they won't do anything else, but there's a high percentage chance that they will do the same thing, because we're an extension of we're a subproduct of our surrounding. We're a byproduct of it. Nonetheless, similarly, if we surround ourselves with the right people, our intention is an extension of those people around us, the people that we are with, the people that we watch, the people that we listen to. So 100% tawfiq is from Allah, but the intention needs to come from us as well. And hopefully by making that intention over and over again, we're able to feel the ability to do it. This is why the scholars say, and Muzahid rahimahullah, he mentions that we should make intention 3 times: at the beginning of the deed, during the deed, and at the end of the deed. All 3 of them is to make us feel completely free of any form of riya and shirk. But number 2, to remind us that the outcome is worth it, right? The objective that we are pursuing was worth it. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakumullah khair. And it makes me think through like how we're fasting, the niyyah that we make in the morning, or the niyyah that we make before we sleep to wake up, to eat suhoor, to fast, and the niyyah that you make after you finish eating suhoor, and then the dua that you do throughout the entire day, and then at the end right before iftar. So it's also already built into our routine. So jazakumullah khairan for that. I'm going to combine these next 2 questions. MashaAllah, we have an audience member whose family is tuning in with her. My 7-year-old is curious as to why is it important to meet people who are sick? Why is that important? But to expand on that question, Assalamu alaikum, Sister Samira, could the Mufti please give examples of all the good deeds in the everyday life that does not involve other people as well?
Okay, that's great. So the first question is, why is it important to visit sick people? Our deen breaks our a'mal into 2 categories. Number 1 are the a'mal that have the right of Allah, huququllah. So praying salat is a responsibility that is from the category of huququllah, the rights of Allah, right? Fasting, no one benefits from us fasting except for us. No one benefits from our prayer except for us. Going for Hajj, right? Reading Quran. These are all in the category of the rights of Allah. But then the second category are called huququl ibad, the rights of people. And we have an entire genre and a category of deeds that fit within this category, such as visiting sick people, such as giving charity to people, such as going for people's janazah. So the Prophet of Allah reminds us, haqqul muslimi al muslimi khamsun, that there are 5 rights that every believer has upon each other. 5, and I won't go into each one, just to summarize all 5. Meaning these are 5 things that are fard upon us for one another. If we are doing these 5 things, that means we have upheld the responsibility of brotherhood and sisterhood. If we're doing less, that means we're underperforming. If we're doing more, that means we're doing extra. But these 5 are mandatory, like our 5 times salat. Number 1 is raddu salam, responding to people's salam. This has to do with people. So someone says salam, I respond to their salam. And responding to their salam doesn't mean that I just say wa alaikum salam. Responding to a salam means I leave them in a place of peace. It's not the words that are the pursuit. It is the outcome that is the goal. That my goal is to leave this person in a state of peace. That's raddu salam. And if I have to do more for it, I will do more for it. Hence the Prophet says, when someone says assalamu alaikum, we say wa rahmatullah, and so on and so forth. And if we smile at people, because the idea is not wa alaikum salam. Sometimes people say wa alaikum salam and it makes us feel worse. It's to make them feel good. Number 2, ijabatu da'wah, respond to their invitation. So if they call us, we respond to them. Number 3 is tashmitul atash. Someone sneezes, says alhamdulillah, we say yarhamukallah. Similarly, if someone needs something, we make dua for them. That's what this concept refers to. Number 4 is iyadatul marid, visiting the sick. Right? We do an entire workshop just talking about these 5 things. There's a lot that can be spoken about why we visit sick people. The Prophet of Allah on a daily would visit sick people. Number 1, to make them feel cheery mooded, to uplift their mood. But number 2, to remind ourselves about the fragility of this life and to remind ourselves about the blessing of good health. The Prophet says 2 blessings that are completely overlooked by people is free time and good health. So when we see people who are sick, we cheer them up, we make them feel good. We are able to we're able to enable them to have something to look forward to. And number two, we remind ourselves that Allah has given us health. What a blessing it is. We can only identify a blessing by seeing people who don't have it. Hence, the Prophet of Allah would say that look at people who have less blessings than us, not to make ourselves pity ourselves, but to simply remind ourselves that this blessing came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the last right that we have upon each other, ittiba'ul janaiz, is to go for janazas. As for examples of good deeds that don't have anyone else involved, fasting, right? Praying salat, all of those. Reading Quran, right? The Prophet of Allah was given both categories. Ya ayyuhal muzammil, qum al-layla illa qalila, ya ayyuhal muddathir, qum fa'andir. The best deed that we could do in respect to ourselves and Allah is praying salat. And the best deed that we could do in respect to people is to call them towards Allah. There's nothing better. Better than giving them food is giving them da'wah. Better than giving them anything of health is giving them the health of the akhirah, which is the ultimate goal.
It's also like Allah wants the best for us, so it's already built into the requirements of Islam, the obligations of Islam. Like the prayer is an obligation, but you're also getting rewarded for it. So there's so many benefits. Jazakumullah khairan for covering that. This goes into this next question. Are there any signs that the good deeds are accepted? You mentioned this about the Jummah prayer, like being able to repeatedly attend. Do you mind elaborating a little bit more?
Yeah, so one of the signs that the deeds are accepted is that Allah enables us to do it again, right? It's like, look, I'll give a simple example. If someone calls you to the house for a da'wah and you show up and you bring a so-and-so gift, whatever you bring, a gift that someone else gave you perhaps, and you come to that person's house, you give them that gift, you sit there for the few hours and you leave, and you're never invited back. That's pretty much a sign that your coming was not well appreciated, right? Similarly, if we're able to come into Allah's invitation, Allah is the one that is calling towards His deen, right? Allah is the one that is inviting us towards His worship. سابقوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة عرضها السماوات والأرض. He is the one that is encouraging us and motivating us, and that is the ultimate objective. So once we show up and we present ourselves and we're able to show up again, that's a sign that He accepted the first one. It's like being invited again and again. The way that you know that your job interview went well, you wait for a call back. And if you don't get a call back, you don't need a call anymore because you know you weren't accepted. Similarly, that call that we want is tajibu, like we want to be called to Allah, and the best way to see that our amal was accepted is that we're called back again and again. We should always have hope that it's accepted and fear that it wasn't, so it keeps us balanced. Another sign that our deeds are accepted is that it brings the sense of happiness in our life. It brings a sense of positivity in our life that we were able to do an act of goodness, as is the case when we do good for people. That makes us feel good about ourselves, right? So that's both things can be looked at as signs of acceptance.
And so there's another question that we got privately, and this is one that I feel like many of you have answered, but I feel this is just the right time to also answer this question. But essentially, alhamdulillah, thank you, dear brother, for your beautiful lessons and reminders. Please clarify. It is our current understanding that when making personal du'as, it is not correct to include the insha'Allah with our ameens during these times, because it implies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may choose not to respond to a personal prayer, when in fact He subhanahu wa ta'ala has already guaranteed in the Quran that absolutely He hears and responds to all who call upon Him. So just differentiating when saying insha'Allah and differentiating that from like an actual dua that you're making.
Yeah, so in the dua, you're asking Allah, you're speaking to Allah subhanahu. It's a conversation, it's munajat, it's a conversation with you and Allah. So when we're asking of someone to do something for us, we don't add if you will per se. We simply, if we want it, if we really want it, we simply say, hey, please give me this. Not if you wish. That's a way of saying, if you really want to give it. Right? Similarly, the idea of dua is ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba. We call upon Allah knowing that He will accept it. So the mentality is that it's not that we don't include insha'Allah because it won't be accepted. We don't include insha'Allah because it's in the conversation, and that conversation, that the need of saying it isn't there because we're in the pursuit of it already being accepted. And when we're speaking to people about it happening, we're still saying insha'Allah because now we're conversing to someone else in respect to conversing directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we're speaking to Him, we already have the understanding. And when we're speaking about something that he we're hoping that He gives us, we always refer just saying insha'Allah, because now it may look like we're doing it ourselves, but when we're speaking to him, we know that he is the one doing it for us. It's also to keep a sense of balance in our own mentalities, that when I'm speaking to someone else, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get this done. And we don't say insha'Allah, it actually might make us think that we're doing it. But when we're speaking to Allah and asking him, there's no confusion. We know he's the one that is doing it. Allahu A'lam. Hope that is it.
Okay, so it's essentially when you're speaking to someone, I will do it, inshallah. And then when speaking to Allah, it's Ya Allah, allow me to do this. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Right? 100%. Okay. So one more question, because I want to revert back to the idea of Ramadan, because that is today's topic, right? So yes, we got into a lot of du'as and insha'Allahs during Ramadan, but also you gave us some very practical, tangible lessons and allegories that are very relatable. But essentially, how do we get over that mid-Ramadan hump, right? You gave us okay, don't aim for the home run, aim for the first base, where we set all these goals for ourselves, but now we're seeing it's really tough to maintain the same rigor and devotion. How do we reset our intention mid-Ramadan, or what are some tangible actions or achievables that you would recommend?
I would say it's like anything else that we start in life. When we first start, it's exciting. In the middle, it becomes a little challenging, and at the end, it's a replicate of the intro, right? The conclusion is normally a replicate of the intro. But in regards to Ramadan specifically, I think we have a base, and that base is what we work on. And even in the middle 10 days, that base shouldn't be compromised. Whatever is extra can come in the first few days. Whatever is extra will come in the last few nights. But we need to have a base. It's like, for example, when a person is told that you will be getting a bonus, they're like, that's cool, but what's my base salary, right? What am I actually getting? Promotions are good. I want them. I would love to get a bonus, right? But what is my base? Similarly, a person can't work somewhere where they're only getting bonuses, because that means they don't have a base to rely upon. Similarly, we can't go into the month of Ramadan simply swinging to do well when there's bonuses there, like Laylatul Qadr is there, or the first few nights. We have to have a base for ourselves, and that base should be written. It's not real till it's penciled, right? So what is my base? My base is to recite this much Quran in a day. And maybe it's not the amount, it's the time that we give to it, right? My base could be, I'm going to go ahead and give this much charity every 10 days. That's the base. And everything extra is bonus. So in the middle 10 days, the dip shouldn't be below our base. And the best way to set that is to make sure that we have set a base that we can do, and allow ourselves to take the highs when they come, but never a low that is below the base. Because then everything is based on emotions. We believe that the emotion is created by the amal. The amal is not created by the emotion. Right, which means that a person's iman increases through good deeds. Right, there's a continuous debate amongst philosophers of Islam about, does iman create amal, or does amal create iman? Meaning, when I do good deeds, does it increase my faith, or does my increasing of faith allow me to do good deeds? And of course, they're somewhat inseparable. But many conclude by saying, by doing good deeds, your faith also increases, meaning your emotions become stronger towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So have that base. Even if you're not feeling it, we still have that base. How will we start feeling it? By doing more of it, right? And it continues to give us that sense of happiness and joy from doing the deed. And we know, we going into the month of Ramadan, we know the middle 10 days, we'll have that dip. But the dip shouldn't be under the base, inshallah ta'ala. It's easier to move away from a challenge when you know it's coming. We can plan around it, right? If we know that it's going to be a dry spell in the summer in regards to my business, let me really push hard in the winter, right? So that's the idea of the days of Ramadan as well.
Okay, this slightly ties into this next question that we got privately a little bit earlier before this session. So just framing the question, for me, it is living in a family that doesn't share the same religiosity as I do. Ramadan for most of my family members is fasting, eating, making sure you pray, reading a little Quran, and that's it. If you do more than that, you are extreme and face harsh judgment and criticism. This, along with a lack of community near me and lack of people who share the sense of improving in our iman and coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So question, how do we navigate Ramadan with our families, especially when their observance of it isn't to the same level as what I want to do?
Okay, that's a great question. May Allah, whoever it is, sister or brother, may Allah bring you ease and comfort, give you the support system that is required for this. So in that situation, you have the ability of doing more private deeds, right? So the deeds that your family won't see, like tahajjud, like giving charity, like finishing more khatams of the Quran, So those are things that no one will be able to know about, and neither will they be able to control. So in respect to some of the things that are more communal, that may be difficult for you, but we take what we know, we play the hand that we're dealt, right? Like, so if we know that's a challenge for us, then perhaps relying upon the private deeds will be the route for us. And slowly but surely, we hope that the public communal deeds also open up for us, whatever that looks like for you and your situation. Also, being more strategic. So, for example, if let's say, for example, the family doesn't allow people to go ahead and be present in certain gatherings in the month of Ramadan, choose gatherings in which there is, some level of socialness attached to it. So it may be easier to convince your family on allowing you to go or going with you, right? So be strategic, pick and choose your battles, but no one can confine or limit us in regards to our private deeds. In the month of Ramadan actually is the one month where, yes, there is the communal aspect, but there is more of an importance that is placed upon the deeds that are done privately, right? So that we can work upon that. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakumullah khairan. We have another question publicly from the audience. I feel like this might be the last one, inshallah, Mufti. Mufti Sahib, you always say not just being of good deeds is important. Give me 1 second. Good deeds is important. At the end of the good deed is also very important. Can you please explain this again?
Yeah, 100%. The Prophet says, "Innamal a'malu bil khawatim." Verily, deeds are based upon their endings. People don't remember the way you met them in the beginning; they remember how you left them, right? So the idea of my brother Mufti Abdul Rahman, he mentioned a few years back after our brother Rahimullah passed, he said that we believe that first impressions are final impressions, but truly last impressions are final impressions. So the same works for our deeds. How did we end the deed? Did we end it with this is hard, or did we end it with, oh man, I'm gonna miss this? That is innama a'malu bil khawatim, right? Like, for example, when something good is coming to an end, you know how you feel about it. And when something's a burden coming to an end, we also know how we feel about it. So a deed, though it is a responsibility, it is not a burden. مَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْقُرْآنَ لِتَشْقَى. It's supposed to be hard. Anything that is a blessing in this world has an attached challenge with it. People always comment that Ramadan is hard, doing good is hard. Well, the answer is, becoming a professional in any field is hard. Becoming a physician, becoming a scholar, becoming an engineer, becoming anything is hard. Working towards any level of a goal that is worth working towards is hard. Health is the greatest blessing, but it's also the greatest challenge. Family is a great blessing, but within it is a great challenge. Wealth is a blessing, but it's the greatest challenge. Deen is a blessing, it is a challenge. Deen being a challenge is not a sign of it not being a blessing. Rather, it is a sign of it definitively being a blessing. Because every blessing in our life comes with an attached challenge. So it's unfair to play that double standard with our deen by saying, oh, it's so challenging, hence I can't do it. But so is everything else, right? So at the end, we should be motivated. We should close out strong as we do with everything else in our life. We should end with our best foot forward. So Allah allows us to do it again and again. So yes, khitamuhu misk. The ending is what Allah sees and what Allah judges us based upon. So ending strong is definitely an objective for us. But we can only end as strong as we began, right? The idea of, yes, Allah will allow us to pray Laylatul Qadr. Yes, He will. But if we pray every single night, we will definitely get Laylatul Qadr. The idea that the ending will be more beautiful if we, throughout the month, we're pursuing it, right? It's like someone, it's a silly example, someone that is, loves football and watches the Super Bowl that is finished, right? And they watch the Super Bowl and they only catch the last 10 minutes. If they love the sport, that won't fulfill their appetite. They're gonna go back and watch the whole thing again because they enjoy it, and the ending becomes more beautiful because they were able to watch the whole game. The ending of a deed becomes so much more sweet because we're committed to it all the way along. Right? And that's the idea of the ending of the deed being the most important. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakumullah khairan. On that note, Mufti, help us finish strong by restating and summarizing the 5 points, inshallah. Of course, I would love to. And then along with that, if you could do, this was a request from an earlier member who had to leave, but she will be returning to watch the recording later, but essentially making dua. We love ending with a dua every one of these Friday Gem sessions. So after the summarizing, if you could dive right into a dua for our brothers and sisters in Palestine, for allowing us all to reach Ramadan, and for allowing us all to finish Ramadan strong, inshallah.
Inshallah. Ameen ya Rab. So number one, the first one was light on the face, meaning there's a presence of light in a person. It has nothing to do with the color of their skin, has to do with how they make people feel. That this person lights up the room. That's the verbiage that we use in English. He or she lights up the room. It's not because of how they look, it's how they make people feel. And number two was light in the heart. It becomes a form of reliance, that we know we have light in the heart so we can make the right decision. Number three was strength, internal strength. So even someone that is so small and scrawny and skinny, but they're able to pray so long in tahajjud, that's called strength within the body that Allah gives. Right? A person has less money but can give more charity. Strength, internal strength. Right? Then this barakatan fi rizq, Allah puts barakah. He increases the capacity of what we have already. He may not increase the number, but increases the impact. And last but not the least is that Allah puts our love in the hearts of people around us. And that these five summarize the effect of a single good deed. Ahsanu amala. By doing good deeds, Allah gives us all five of these things. And hence, there's actually a sense of more love for people in the month of Ramadan, because we have more good deeds. So everyone loves each other more. There's more of a sense of community. There's more of a sense of kindness and appreciation, because we're all performing more good deeds. It's not a secret. The formula is very clear. Allah makes amongst those people. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم اغفر ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. اللهم حبب الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان. اللهم اجعلنا من الراشدين. اللهم اشف مرضانا وعافي مبتلانا وارحم موتانا إنك حق على كل شيء قدير. Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Allah, you accept all of our deeds, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, you allow us to be amongst those that you are pleased with, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, make it the greatest goal of our life to make you happy and to see our Habib on the day of judgment, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, you allow us to be amongst those that are raised with the prophets and the Sahabas. Ya Allah, all of those that are suffering across the world, that are going through different challenges. Ya Allah, you remove their difficulties and you remove their challenges. Ya Allah, we ask for your help, your support, your assistance for our brothers and sisters that are suffering and struggling and being made shaheed in Gaza and in Palestine. Ya Allah, you bring your ease upon them. Allah, you shower your blessings upon them. Ya Allah, you shower your grace upon them. Ya Allah, you shower your afiyah upon them. Ya Allah, allow them to begin the month of Ramadan with ease. Ya Allah, allow them to begin the month of Ramadan united with their families in this world. Ya Allah, allow them to begin the month of Ramadan within their homes, not afraid of any form of punishment and genocide. Ya Allah, you bring them ease. Ya Allah, you bring them strength. Ya Allah, your Prophet promised us that whenever we ask of you, you accept. Ya Allah, you accept our du'as for our brothers and sisters in Gaza and in Palestine and Sudan. Ya Allah, you bring ease to all of the Muslims that are suffering across the world. Ya Allah, you bring hidayah to everyone in this world. Ya Allah, you bring your guidance to the people in this world. Ya Allah, make us amongst those that can continue serving your deen till our last breath. Ya Allah, you make the greatest honor of our life to serve your deen and to say the statements of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen.